Chapter 3, A Caucus Race and a Long Tail. They were indeed a strange-looking party that assembled on the bank, the birds with ragged feathers, the animals with their fur clinging close to them, and all dripping wet, cross, and uncomfortable. The first question, of course, was how to get dry again. They had a consultation about this, and after a few minutes it seemed quite natural to Alice to find herself talking with them, as if she had known them all of her life. Indeed, she had quite a long argument with the lorry, who at last turned sulky and would only say, "I am older than you and must know better." And this Alice would not allow. She demanded to know how old he was, and, as the lorry positively refused to tell his age, there was no more to be said. At last, the mouse, who seemed to be a person of authority among them, called out, "Sit down, all of you, and listen to me. I'll soon make you dry enough." They all sat down at once, in a large ring, with the mouse in the middle. Alice kept her eyes anxiously fixed on the mouse, for she felt sure she would catch a bad cold if she did not get dry very soon. "Excuse me," said the mouse, with an important air. "Are you all ready? This is the driest thing I know. Silence all around, if you please." William the Conqueror, whose cause was favored by the Pope, was soon submitted to by the English, who wanted leaders, and had been of late much accustomed to conquest. Edwin and Morcar, the Earls of Mercia and Northumbria. "Ugh," said the lorry, with a shiver. "I beg your pardon," said the mouse. He frowned, but remained polite. "Did you speak?" "Not I," said the lorry hastily. "Well, I thought you did," said the mouse. "I will proceed. Edwin and Morcar, the Earls of Mercia and Northumbria, declared for him, and even Stigand, the patriotic Archbishop of Canterbury, found it advisable." "Found what?" said the duck. "Found it," said the mouse. "Of course, you all know what it means." "I know well enough what it means when I find the thing," said the duck. "It's generally a frog or a worm. The question is, what did the Archbishop find?" The mouse did not notice this question, but he hurriedly went on. "Found it advisable to go with Edgar Atheling to meet William and offer him the crown. William's conduct at first was moderate, but the insolence of his Normans— How are you getting on now, my dear?" he continued, turning towards Alice. "Well, I'm as wet as ever," said Alice. "It doesn't seem to dry me at all." "Well, in that case," said the dodo, "I move that the meeting adjourn. It's time for the immediate adoption of more energetic remedies." "Speak English," said the eaglet. "I don't know the meaning of half of those long words, and what's more, I don't believe you do either." And the eaglet bent down its head to hide a smile, while some of the other birds tittered audibly. "What I was going to say," said the dodo, now slightly offended, "was that the best thing to get us dry would be a caucus race." "Okay," said Alice. "What is a caucus race?" Not that she much wanted to know, but the dodo had paused, as if he thought somebody ought to speak, and no one else seemed inclined to say anything. "Why," said the dodo, "the best way to explain it is to do it. And you, dear reader, might like to try the same thing yourself some winter day, and I will tell you how the dodo managed it. First, the dodo marked out a race course in a sort of circle. The exact shape doesn't actually matter," said the dodo. "And then all the party were placed along the course, here and there. There was no 1, 2, 3, and away, but they began running when they liked and left off when they liked, so that it was not easy to know when the race was over. However, when they had been running for about a half an hour, they were quite dry again, and suddenly the dodo called out, 'Hey, the race is over!' And they all crowded around him, panting and asking, 'Well, who has won?' This question the dodo could not answer without a great deal of thought, and he sat for a long time with one finger pressed against his forehead. This is the position in which you usually see Shakespeare in the pictures of him. The rest of the animals waited in silence until at last the dodo said, 'Everybody has won, and all must have prizes.' 'But who is to give us these prizes?' quite a chorus of voices asked. 'Why, she, of course,' said the dodo, pointing to Alice with one finger. The whole party at once crowded around her, calling out in a confused way, 'Prizes, right? It's time for prizes.' Alice had no idea what to do, and in despair, she put her hand into her pocket and pulled out a box of comfits. Luckily, the salt water had not gotten into them. She handed the comfits round as prizes. There was exactly one piece for every animal. 'But she must have a prize herself, you know,' said the mouse. 'Well, of course,' said the dodo. 'Well, girl, what else have you got in your pocket?' Alice sighed. 'I have a thimble.' 'Hand it over here,' said the dodo. Then they all crowded around once more, while the dodo solemnly presented the thimble and said, 'We beg your acceptance of this elegant thimble.' When he had finished his short speech, all of the animals gave a cheer. Alice thought the whole thing very absurd, but they all looked so serious that she did not dare to laugh, and, as she could not think of anything to say, she simply bowed and took the thimble and looked as solemn as she could. The next thing to do was to eat the comfits. This caused some noise and confusion. The large birds complained that they could not taste theirs, and the small ones choked and had to be patted on the back. However, it was over at last, and they sat down again in a ring and begged the mouse to tell them more stories. 'You promised to tell me your history, you know,' said Alice, 'and why it is that you hate C's and D's,' she added in a whisper. She was afraid to offend the mouse again. 'Well, mine is a long and sad tale,' said the mouse. 'It is a long tale, certainly,' said Alice, looking down with wonder at the mouse's tail. 'But why do you call it sad?' And she kept on puzzling about this while the mouse was speaking, and her idea of the tale was something like this. Fury said to a mouse that he met in the house, 'Let us both go to law. I will prosecute you. Come, I'll take denial. We must have a trial. For really, this morning, I've nothing to do, said the mouse to the cur. Such a trial, dear sir, with no jury or judge. We'd be wasting our breath. I'll be judge, I'll be jury, said the cunning old fury. I'll try the whole cause and condemn you to death. You are not attending, said the mouse to Alice severely. What are you thinking of? I beg your pardon, said Alice very humbly. You had got to the fifth bend, I think? I had not, cried the mouse, sharply and angrily. A knot, said Alice, always ready to make herself useful. She looked about anxiously. I can help you undo the knot. This is absurd, said the mouse, getting up and walking away. You insult me by talking such nonsense. Well, I didn't mean it, pleaded Alice. But you're so easily offended, you know. The mouse growled in reply. But please come back and finish your story. Yes, please do, cried the others. But the mouse only shook its head impatiently and walked away a little quicker. Well, what a pity it wouldn't stay, sighed the Lory, as soon it was quite out of sight. An old crab took the opportunity of saying to her daughter, Ah, my dear, let this be a lesson to you never to lose your temper. Hold your tongue, mother, said the young crab, a little snappishly. You're enough to try the patience of an oyster. Alice gave a big sigh. I wish I had Dinah here. She addressed no one in particular. She'd fetch the mouse right back. And who is Dinah, if I might venture to ask the question, said the Lory. Alice replied eagerly, for she was always ready to talk about her beloved cat. Dinah's my cat, and she's such a capital one for catching mice, and you can't think. And oh, I wish you could see her catch birds. She'll eat a little bird as soon as she'll look at it. This speech caused a remarkable sensation among the party. Some of the birds hurried off at once. One old magpie began wrapping itself up very carefully and remarked, I really must be getting home. The night air doesn't suit my throat. A canary called out in a trembling voice to his children, Come away, my dears. It's high time we were all in bed. On various pretexts they all moved away, and Alice was soon left all alone. Oh, how I wish I hadn't mentioned Dinah, she said to herself in a melancholy tone. No one seems to like her down here, and I know she's the best cat in the world. Oh, my dear Dinah, I wonder if I shall ever see you ever again. And here poor Alice began to cry again, for she felt very lonely and low-spirited. In a little while, however, she again heard a little pattering of footsteps in the distance, and she looked up eagerly, half hoping that the mouse had changed his mind and was coming back to finish his story.